welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Billboard. I'm here with my co-host. He is the co-founder of OneScreen, who's been powering this podcast, where we talk a lot about brand marketing and out-of-home advertising, Greg Wise. And we're here with a very special guest. I know we say everyone's a special guest, but Jay is, you've seen him everywhere. We were trying to figure out how to introduce him. We're going to let Jay Schwedelson introduce himself because he really is everywhere from a marketing standpoint, and he's done incredible work, and we're thrilled to have him here. So Jay, if you don't mind giving the listeners a little bit of background of everything you are doing, you're an adjunct professor everywhere. You between Guru Media Hub, you're incredible on LinkedIn. We can go on, but if you could let everyone know a little bit about your background, if they already don't know what it is, I'd be surprised if they don't.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell I do. My wife definitely doesn't, and my kids could care less.
Makes
But so I've had a demand gen agency called Alchemy Media forever. It's about a 100-person company in South Florida here. So we do all sorts of different marketing channels and whatnot. And then I have a media company that puts on massive virtual events and podcasts and all sorts of stuff. Everything's in kind of the marketing universe. I do a lot in the email space, so cause some trouble there and just try to have my kind of hand in every cookie jar I possibly can. So I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan of out of home. I think it's like massively coming on the rise for every type of B2B, B2C company. So I love what you guys are doing.
I'm a big fan of email marketing as well. Subjectline.com has been a great help when I've been writing emails. So I appreciate what you've put out there across the whole world, especially as all of our spouses have no idea what we do.
well, I'm a big fan of putting pictures of billboards in email to people.
That's like very meta, it's like all combined into one thing.
Jay, we were talking before about something that email marketing you just talked about, and a lot of email marketers are getting credit where they probably shouldn't. And the hot word everyone in marketing likes to talk about is attribution and who gets credit. I don't know if it is a spicy take, but you think attribution's BS. I mean,
Yeah.
curious to hear your take on why you think that.
Yeah, it is total garbage. And I do a lot in the email space. And a lot of times our clients are like, oh, we sent this email and we got, X, Y, and Z new customers into pipeline, new sales, new whatever. Let's double down. Let's do even more email because that crushed it. Look, I'm shooting myself in the foot by saying this to them, but it's ridiculous. Because you hit send on the email is not the reason someone became a customer or a prospect or whatever. And the reason I say attribution is garbage is that email is that last touch. It could be the same thing for that search ad or that paid social ad or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. You're not hitting the person just at that magical time. What's happening is you're putting out a lot of stuff. You're putting out all sorts of thought leadership, hopefully, all sorts of great information. Maybe you're running out of home campaigns. You're doing stuff months, years, and then the person's finally in market, right? And then you're hitting them and they think well of your company, and in that moment, like, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of this thing because I need the thing. But it's this, holistic marketing approach that allows when that email hits for you to get that opportunity and to attribute the opportunity because of that email going out is a joke. And it's ridiculous. If you're not doing all those other things, it doesn't matter. So when I say attribution is garbage it's very, very, very hard to quantify. At what point did you become the possible brand that person wants to engage with? And it's not because they sent that one email, it's because of everything else that's going on.
When did we start, and maybe this has just always been the conversation with marketers, the conversation around attribution, where like every part of the marketing team, everyone is fighting to prove the value of what they do? Has that always just been from the dawn of time with marketing? Or is that just like, hey, the past decade because of performance marketing and digital and what happened?
I think it's the specialization of marketing. You have people on every
Yeah.
team. I do the email marketing, I do the search, I do the social, and everyone's fighting for budget, right? And it's like, I'm going to prove out that our metrics are really good so I can get more I can get more of that budget so I can do more so like I could do a better job, and everyone's trying to prove their case that it's them. It's very rare that you have the person that has responsibility for all of it. And I think it's just like this internal fighting. Maybe it's not actual fighting, but it's all about the bureaucracy of budgeting, in my opinion, that's created this total nonsense.
You're right about the infighting. I think it's like you said, the niching down or niching down, however you'd like to say it. But the person who's doing paid search, they've trained others in the organization to understand what that dashboard looks like, so they can see that immediate cost. Same for email marketing. It's like they know their metrics and they're selling against the idea of, you're right, like how do I get more budget or how do I get more attention? But we've built this world around demand gen or whatever we want to call those types of marketers, but they're fighting against the brand marketers who are thinking essentially longer term. But like I think what you talked about before was that email gets the credit for the trust that all those efforts have built up over time.
Totally right. And one of the things that we do is we create holdout groups. So let's say someone has a database of 100,000 people in their database. We'll take usually 10% of that database, put it off to the side, and we will try to isolate these people from getting anything, no emails, as best as we can, no remarketing, no retargeting, nothing. And then we run all the other marketing that we do. And then we measure back, okay, how many of the people in the holdout group still converted to a customer versus everybody else over here, to see how effective actually is all of this stuff that we're putting out there, or are we just fooling ourselves, and does the holdout group convert just as well as everybody that we're just pounding with emails and all this stuff? Because we try to figure out ways to figure out what is actually going on. It's really hard, and it's getting harder and harder because we're just constantly in everybody's faces, so it's a mess.
I'll tell you what can break through some of the noise: a billboard.
It's true. I agree with you. And that's one of the things I'm interested about, really what you all are doing. Because in my view, when I always thought of out of home, and this is embarrassing to say, I think of, Times Square. I think of, just big brand, consumer brands, whatever. And then when it started to seep in my brain, wait a minute, these, SaaS companies, or I do a lot of marketing for big events, right?
Sure.
I could do an account-based play. I can market around an event doing out of home, or I could say, okay, I want to go to the headquarter location of these 100 companies and get my brand in front of their faces. This kind of like blew my mind about out of home is not just like, it really is just not a billboard, right? It's so much more than that.
We talked about attribution and out of home. So enter out of home, right? And it's still that same conversation about attribution. And it's not a this or this, it's this tactic and this tactic. And they both work together. It's the rising tide lifts all boats. And that includes every conversation we have with marketers who are exploring out of home for the first time. You're not doing it in a silo. And no one here is claiming last touch attribution, or this is not the holy grail of DR. This is a contributing channel to what you're looking to achieve, to your performance funnel. To answer your question, though, specifically, out of home comes in many shapes and sizes. You asked me, and I was very fortunate and appreciative of being on your podcast. And you asked me what my family and friends think of, me selling signs in the bathroom stalls. That is out of home. Out of home is the bathroom stall sign. You see at the Celtics game at TD Garden. It is a billboard. It is a wallscape. It is the wrapped food truck. It is the sandcastle on the beach. All of that is out of home, super fragmented. And a lot of folks think of Times Square, right? And of course, that can be a great play for folks. But what you talked about is a more data driven, performance oriented approach to out of home, which is really where we play, right? We have customers, both B2B and B2C, who have very specific business objectives. B2B companies who have specific target accounts they're trying to break into. They want to provide air cover for their sales team, or maybe they have existing accounts they want to expand within. B2C companies who want to drive more sales to their e-commerce store. Or perhaps there's a CPG brand who just launched into all the Whole Foods across the country and they want to drive sell through. Out of home is a phenomenal channel to help go do that. And it extends far beyond Times Square. But we use data to help them figure out, hey, what are those like misunderstood markets and locations and inventory that can actually drive the best business impact? Not just the Times Square billboard that gets just a shitload of impressions.
I'm curious though, do people come to you with like what in my agency, they'll come to me and say, okay, we have this target account file. Here's 15,000, companies, whatever we want to go after, blah, blah, blah. We want to run, marketing campaigns. Okay, great. Do people come to you with that? Or is it like, here's 3 companies we want to like get in front of type of thing?
It's all the above. So it's both use cases. So we'll work with companies that have thousands of target accounts spread out around the country. Then we have companies who come to us and they say, look, like we have 50 target accounts. Here they are, and they're spread out, and they have, we're trying to sell to Boeing, right? These giant campuses, or we're trying to sell to Walmart or Target. Each one of those has unique ABM out of home use cases. But in both cases, it's not just about plotting the target accounts and seeing what billboards or other inventory is closest to it. It's actually using audience data and movement data. So it's figuring out, of the people that you're trying to reach that go to these particular offices, where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they play? And the data that we use actually helps us to figure that out in real time. So it might not be the obvious billboard that you may think. It's this billboard on this roadway because that's where 90% of these employees actually what they take, the roadway they take to get to and from the office. And these are the zip codes in which they live. And it's a hybrid and oftentimes remote only environment. So we need to make sure we're hitting people there too. But that is a big use case. And in fact, we had the pleasure of talking to Melissa Rosenthal on our podcast as well. And she was, in my opinion, she is responsible for putting ClickUp on the map really in a big way with the brand marketing that she did. And it was out of home specifically. They were everywhere. And she talks about this. She's like, it worked. Just even anecdotally, I would get Slacks and calls and emails from the sales team saying, thank you. And when did that ever happen?
No, no,
Right? Because their target accounts were picking up the phone and saying, holy shit, I've seen you guys everywhere.
that's awesome.
That's unbelievable.
It's a medium that can stand out. And I think, to add, Jay, to your one example there, of if you've got a small amount of maybe target, like an ABM list or target account list, like exactly what Greg talked about, finding places where you're going to get that subconscious viewpoint from the executives that are driving by all the time. But there's a couple other plays there. It could be, if you want to get really bold and get someone to take a picture or to follow up with that salesperson, it's a mobile truck outside that headquarters with a specific rotating message that talks specifically to the audience you want to talk to. Or even like some of the larger events, someone wants to do a big takeover an event, we're not just going to wrap any baggage claim in the airport. We're going to look at data from the previous year to see, do they fly in from Atlanta or Chicago, because it might be terminal C versus terminal D. And we don't want to just guess. We want to use data to be able to find the right place so that there is that exposure there. So, yeah, I think it's probably a little similar to how you've mastered email marketing. I think everyone
Yeah.
probably assumes email marketing is easy. It's free, right? I can just write an email. But everything under the iceberg that goes into building a really good email cadence, there's a lot of work there. There's a lot of knowledge that you've brought, like that you've learned over time. Same thing goes with out of home planning. There's certain data sources you need. There's certain specifics you need to think about when it's how many words you use on a billboard. It's kind of similar in a sense of anyone could go buy a billboard, but to build a really impactful campaign, there's a lot of things that you need to think about and a lot of work that needs to be done from a best practice standpoint, probably similar to email marketing or really anything else your team works on.
No, totally. And I'm curious about that. And there's something I keep seeing that I was curious specifically about your guys' take on something. There's all this use of AI to make fake out of home. Like I saw
Mm.
The Simpsons did a big release in the UK of like whatever their shows, and they put Marge Simpson's blue hair on the top of Big Ben. And it looked real. I mean, it looked straight up real. I mean, this is an extreme example, but there's all these AI kind of fake out of home things that people are creating. Like you can't even tell half time if it's real, not real. And a lot of times out of home, there's two different pieces to it. There's the actual person sees it. Oh, I want to engage with it. I just saw it. I'm a human seeing it. But then there's the social media play where you promote the fact that you ran these out of home campaigns and you're trying to get that look at me factor, right? But if you're able to create fake out of home stuff, does that screw up your world at all?
It takes the IRL part of it out of the equation. That's now, Charlie, the second time I used IRL. Now I feel like
You are so
super Gen
cool.
Z.
Yeah,
Yeah,
way to
what the
go,
hell?
dude.
God. But it takes half the equation out of play. And look, when you do out of home, given where we are and we have access to social media is a way to amplify that message. So you're doing part of it by doing this fake out of home, but you're not fooling anyone, right? So like there's no one actually seeing it in real life. And that's where the bulk of the performance and the business results are going to come from. The
And the
social piece of it is the cherry on top, that kind of like amplifies it. But like the whole point of this thing is to quite literally have a billboard up in real life to impact the people that you want to impact.
Yeah.
So
Well,
ideally, you've actually bought the right billboard to reach the right audience, and you're up there for an extended period of time because you've done the proper reach and frequency analysis, and like there's actually a business reason why you're doing it. So like the fake stuff, like Marge Simpson on Big Ben or whatever, it's pretty obvious that's fake. It's cool, it's fun, but at some point also, to me, the tangible physical world becomes even more important because like everyone's going to assume everything is AI and fake, but you cannot
well,
fake the physical world when you're actually out and about and seeing something.
I think just to piggyback off of that, the social proof is the credibility part. Like we did a cool ad, so people are going to share that. And yes, if it's fake or not, you can sort of see through that to some degree. That digital ad can still be not seen by the person you want it to be seen by because they can turn that off. They can mute your ad. They can unsubscribe from your email. You can't do that with out of home. You can't turn that off, and that's where again, even if it's a subconscious viewpoint of seeing going by that same billboard over and over again, you're building up that brand recognition. So the actual in real life piece, I'm not going to use the acronym, the in real life element of seeing that billboard, you can't escape that. It should complement the digital part, but there's a good chance that we're seeing CAC go up. We're seeing people that the ad fatigue can be real on a digital channel. There's a good chance that that's just either passed by or muted out, where that's not the case with true out of home.
Well, I hope that, your world, your industry gets some sort of labeling going on because I saw, when Skims recently had Kim Kardashian, and I'm a big fan of what she does. I think she built a great business. And she
Yeah.
had that massive inflatable of herself in New York City, like, I don't know, it was like 100 feet long, whatever. And that was real, it wasn't this AI thing. They could have easily done that with AI and they didn't. And I think that's an awesome campaign. And I think that, the out of home industry, whatever that is, there needs to be some sort of labeling of what's real and what's not, because I'm all for these like really, really cool brand exposure. I'm curious about something though. What is like the craziest, weirdest stuff? Do people come to you and be like, hey, I don't even know what, like crazy stuff?
Yeah. Well, can we go wrap a giant skyscraper in New York City?
That's cool. That's
Which is
amazing.
cool. Like
That's cool.
short, give me a day or two to go figure that out, but short.
Louis Vuitton did that. I
Louis
think
Vuitton
was
did
it.
it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
They actually
and
did it.
like the impressions that they got, like the media value that they got out of doing that, and it was smart because I think what were they rebuilding that site, so like it was kind of a like a skin anyways. It was
Oh, on
just
Fifth
a
Avenue. Yeah. I saw that.
yeah, I think that's what it was. Just a smart execution. Like again, the
Yeah.
social proof of the pictures of that, but just
Yeah.
like you can't escape that recognizable brand. That was a really good
People don't
execution.
even, Jay, it's such a good question because people don't even realize what you can do in out of home. I mean, like, quite literally anything is possible. Some things are permitted and some things are just straight guerrilla, right? Street stencils. We just did it for a client in Chicago for an event. We did a
That's
bunch of
cool.
wall postings in conjunction with it. It was all guerrilla. So you could quite literally do anything. You could do drone shows, get 400, 500 drones. You can do projections. You can have street teams. All of that is technically out of home. It's an ad. It's not on your phone. It's not on TV in your house. So it technically isn't in the real world and classified as out of home. So, like, the sky is the limit. And speaking of that, you could do skywriting, aerial banners. There are ads you can do on top of big buildings by airports to reach people when they're landing.
It's everything is about experience now. I mean, to give you an idea, so we have a virtual event coming up, a virtual event. We're trying to make it, you talk about skydiving, we're trying to do engaging stuff. We have actual live skydivers that are going to be doing a session that we're going to be talking to while they skydive,
Awesome.
live, because that's what it's about now. It's about experiential stuff. And that's, I mean, that's what out of home is. It's really experiential.
I think a lot of people look at maybe some of the PR plays that would fall under that category traditionally. Those are or those are out of home executions.
Percent.
There's multiple vendors that you need to pull together to do a skydiving event or even a street team that's sampling out things. Like a virtual event like that could be really interesting where you pick strategic markets and it's hey, if you're in Chicago and you see our street team out, you take a picture of it and send it back in during the whole day's event, like a scavenger hunt or something along those lines. Like that's an execution that could turn into a lot of social sharing, but also like there's an element of like uniqueness there that you can't replicate. So yeah,
Totally.
it comes down to creativity. And I think like what we work on is a lot of the planning side of it, the planning, the execution, negotiating the rates, making sure the vendors actually do what you're intended to do to hit your goal. But the other part of it is the creative. And you have this
Hmm.
unique canvas that you don't want to replicate a Facebook ad on a billboard. You want to keep the brand standards aligned, but you have a totally different canvas to play with there. And part of the point is you have a chance to really stand out. You want that person taking a picture of it, but you want it to just you might have a few seconds if it's driving by the road, but like a big bright brand color that stands out, they're going to go back and Google that. And then you're going to see organic search going up. Like, there's all these secondary factors that come into campaigns like that. But the creative part has a big piece to it of what you
Yeah.
say and making sure you say it the right way in that right format.
Agree. Totally. I'm ready to rock and roll all my out of home campaigns. We're gonna crush it.
We need your face on some billboards.
Oh no, you're gonna scare people? I mean, there's like gonna be Smile Part 3 or whatever.
But that potentially jarring. It's the juxtaposition. That's what could potentially work. Uh,
Potentially
it,
jarring.
it's funny. You're not. You're a very handsome
Thank you
gentleman.
very much. I
Um,
appreciate it.
it's interesting, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you're hearing from marketers that you talk to. What are some of those pain points? What are people feeling out there?
Well, I mean, right now it's uncertainty, right? I don't care
Hmm.
for the next 6 months or so, there's going to be uncertainty. That's not a political statement. I don't care about any of that. There's no doubt that there's uncertainty. So budgets are getting tighter. And the frustrating part about that is that what do a lot of companies do is like, oh, let's rein in marketing because those are
Hmm.
dollars that we don't need to spend, right? And that to me is ridiculously stupid because then
Yep.
you're also reining in sales simultaneously, right? I mean, it just absolutely makes no sense. But the other problem is that what's getting really eliminated is testing. Everyone just wants to spend money in uncertain times on winners, stuff they know is going to perform a certain way. And that's another recipe for failure. So it's hard. It's hard to take bets on things that you can't assign attribution in the normal way. Out of home it might be a tough one to say, oh, we're going to get this much money back from running this campaign. So right now I think we're in a period for the next 6 months of buckle up. It's not going to be as easy to win the day with some of the marketing campaigns, but whatever winners you can get now, I think long term that's awesome. But for every industry, every sector, it's uncertainty.
So that uncertainty, and the first thing to go is marketing, which I believe is also, I guess, idiotic. I'll just say it. And forget out of home for a second. I
Yeah.
just mean to cut marketing, which effectively is sales.
Right.
I feel like we learned our lesson during COVID when
Yeah.
people stopped. And the people who didn't stop came out stronger on the back end and lapped a lot of competitor, right? It's like the opportune time
Absolutely.
to perhaps even invest more
Well, I'll
into.
I'll double down on that for a second. So I just saw some new data. This company Wonderkin put out this data, which I thought was so interesting, where normally loyalty wins the day. Everyone's loyal to whatever B2B platform they're using or consumer products they buy
Yeah.
from. Loyalty wins the day. People normally will spend more money on products and services that they feel loyal to. But right now in uncertainty with budget cuts, and we're watching their dollars and the dollars in their company, now is the time where discounting and better price deals actually will beat out loyalty. And it's showing in all the survey data that people will switch platforms or switch products they buy from for pricing. And so now is the time to be, in my opinion, more aggressively out there saying, hey, try us out. We'll give you a free trial. Try us out. We have a better pricing, whatever, because the loyalty is not as a pull. So now to me is the time to be doing your marketing.
I was just going to add when you talked about there's a great book called Nudge by I think Richard Thaler that talks about the chances you have, and it's probably more on the consumer side of there's only a handful of opportunities to nudge somebody to switch to change something. You gave a great example there of like how B2B has an opportunity to see that, and I think there's so much loyalty, and maybe this goes back to the first part of what you talked about, like email getting credit for things that it maybe shouldn't get credit for. It's getting credit for the trust that's been built up. And I think a lot of these brands have relied on trust that they've built, either maybe as a customer or just the thought leadership they're sharing now. But to your point, with uncertainty kind of over the next year or so, that trust could wane, and there's a chance for cracks to happen and others to step in. And I think there's enough research out there that everyone can find that shows the brands that pulled back on, especially brand marketing, they've come out worse in the long run than those that have just stayed the path, or like you said, doubled down on the opportunities when there's uncertainty.
Totally. Agreed.
Jay, we could talk about this for hours, and appreciate you joining us today.
Honored to be on the show. Love it. You guys are crushing it. I'm going to go stare at a billboard as soon as this is over in honor of you all.
You know what I did, Jay? I was gonna say billboards sort of make you appear larger than life. It's kind of like the "we've arrived" moment type of
There you
thing.
go.
Fun fact: my wife just launched a business called
Oh,
here. I'll do a little plug.
nice.
Sampleupbox.com. It's a chance for like parents to help their kids try healthy snacks.
That's cool. I
So you
dig
all
it.
check it out. It's pretty cool. But put her on some billboards.
Oh, there you go. That'll win you the day back at home. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, she literally launched yesterday and she's on billboards today. And so, like, you're talking about the welcome we've arrived moment. Like, look, we drink our own champagne over here in the Wise household. Um,
That's awesome, though. Congratulations. That's a big deal.
very, very
Look,
cool.
look, it's very cool, and look how quickly you can get an out of home campaign up.
Right.
That's
There
pretty
you
cool.
go. Case study coming in hot.
Yeah,
Hell yes.
Greg,
Let's do it.
we'll send you the invoice for the live read at the
Yeah,
ad we
right.
just got there. But no, it's really cool, and it's a great example. It doesn't have to be a Fortune 500 company
Right.
that
No.
can utilize out of home for an execution like that. So it's really cool.
Totally. That's awesome.
We could talk to you forever, but how can people find you? Again, if they're already not following you on LinkedIn, they absolutely should be. But how can people find you? Any updates on places you want them to find you?
Yeah, no, you could find me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of stupid stuff. If you care about email, we have a free virtual conference called Guru Conference. You go to guruconference.com. It's going to be bananas. And if you want to see if your subject line stinks, just go to subjectline.com because that's free also. Why not?
Love that.
I can vouch for all of those things. They're not stupid. They're incredible
Thank you.
resources. So any marketer should take advantage of that. Thanks again for jumping on with
Yeah.
us.
Yes,
Love it,
man.
and thanks for educating everyone out there. Join us for the next episode when it comes out next week. But thanks again, Jay, and for Greg and myself. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.